All right, so let's listen to this song and just see what it sounds like, and maybe we'll pull in that reference mix. I'm gonna do a little bit of mastering on here, and I'm gonna hold on. I'm just gonna mark these out so we know that those aren't being used. I'm just gonna listen to this mix, make a few tweaks, do some mastering EQ cuts, and I'm gonna bring up the volume a little bit, and then we'll, see how it stacks up. Want to make a side note and say, notice how much those mastering cuts make. So I've just grabbed a few very narrow parametric cuts at a couple of dB. Just listen to the difference it makes. Sometimes those frequencies just build up across the mix, and pulling them out makes it just so much clearer. All right, let's get this up to gain here and keep listening. Guitar really kind of comes up there, but I do like it. So I thought about automating it down, but it's cool. Like you can tell that,
Yeah, I noticed is there a low octave guitar part there?
Yeah, there definitely is too.
Yeah, that's a little loud. But this is the kind of stuff that you catch when you go back and listen.
I'm actually gonna do this.
It might need an EQ tweak as well.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. I knew something sounded a little bit funky there, and let's clean this up. I love bass slides. So let's remind the listener that the bass did a slide, and it's important to actually pay attention to the bass. adjusting the low mid on the bass now because we switched guitar tones, and I felt like I wanted a little bit more back because the sim guitars are just a little bit more scooped.
Yeah.
It just gels it a little bit more, but we still have the clarity. The only thing else I would do is on that really fast double bass, I might pull down like a half dB of just overall gain when it gets all crazy and machine gun.
Yeah, because also just the frequency of hits will increase the volume because they're so close to each other.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like at this point, I would ref it out. So let's do that. And then I would probably send it to the band because they're going to have notes. And to me, what makes a really good first mix is, and this is something that it sounds simple and obvious, but if I've learned anything mixing over my entire career, this to me is one of those like two-liners that people are like, oh, yeah, okay. But you don't really get it until you just have a revelation and you're like, oh my God, I totally understand that. So I'm going to say that a song is done when it sounds like a song, okay?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, and again, it sounds really obvious, but it's not. And it really took me a long time to not only to really deeply understand what this means. Just like I remember a Jack Joseph Puig line, he was like, well, the key to a great mix is, getting the mid-range right. Well, obviously, duh. Well, you'll have an epiphany in your career if you haven't already, where you totally understand that on a level that you've never, it just clicks one day and you're like, oh my God, that's genius. It's so deep, but it's so simple. So I feel like this is one of those like Zen wisdom type things. A song is done when it sounds like a song. Okay, a mix is done. It doesn't matter if my mom is listening to this track, if the snare is a snare 10 or 12 or 13 or, SSD or whatever.
Too bright, too dark.
Yeah, she doesn't care if it's a half dB up or a half dB down, or if, the bass is filtered at 65 versus 70, or, the attack on the kick, if we would have used the Colin Richardson kind of sounding kick earlier versus the one that we used. She doesn't care. She hits play and she listens to the song. She's like, this one is a great song or it's not a great song, and two, does it sound good? And if it sounds good and it's a great song, who cares?
Yeah, you did it.
Like, I don't listen to Appetite for Destruction and I'm like, oh man, dude, those guitars have too much 700 in them. I'm just like, I love this album,
Yeah.
So I'm at that point with the mix now where I could sit here and I can nitpick and nitpick and nitpick, but I've been mixing it for so long, I feel like I need to get away from it and, maybe come back tomorrow or step away a couple hours. But I would send it to the band right now and be like, okay, first mix, what do you guys think? Does it sound good to you? Is there anything that's way off? Like, oh God, I wanted a really deep, like radio rock snare. What are you doing? Or, I wanted a really tight piccolo Pantera, or, you know what I mean? So at that point, it's time to hand it off. And you kind of have
And
to,
you want to get their opinion on it too.
Like, we could sit here and go crazy for another 3 hours of just automating and doing all these teeny little details, but none of that's important. What's important is send it to the artist and get feedback.
And we don't know what their opinion is yet. Yeah,
Absolutely.
We've got to get their feedback.
They could hate it. They could be like, oh my God, the mix is done. You killed it. Who knows?
Yeah.